It's so interesting. When we're kids and we get so excited hanging outside or in the woods. And when we find things, we always like to say we discovered it. But they've always been there. They're more like hidden gems. Just because we don't know they're there or we can't see them, doesn't mean they don't exist. I've asked a lot of people what they know about, or if they've ever heard about the Avenue, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. The Avenue was a vibrant black community at the end of Colored Meeting House Road, now called Creighton Avenue. Families who went from black refugees to landowners. Go up the avenue, knock on a few doors, and they'll be able to tell you what it was like. Because some families are still there to this day. The first time I had heard about the Avenue was through a friend sending me the plaque by Birch Cove. And that opened up a whole research journey. I'm happy to have learned about Freddie Lucas through another friend who also sent me Adrian Lucas's thesis. And that just made me want to learn from them, from the source.
We were from Creighton Avenue, so most of us would hang together from Creighton Avenue. Our intent wasn't to disconnect from white people. We just stuck with what we knew. And I remember I was speaking with Jean McNeil, and I said to her, "Did you know so-and-so?" And she said, "Did they go to St. Peter's School?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, we were Catholics, we all hung together." She said she wouldn't have known him because the Catholics all hung together. And so I think that separation at that time wasn't about racism. I think it was just more about the community. I went to St. Peter's School, and it was absolutely incredible. I'm gonna say there's probably 50 black students, but there was never, ever an issue of racism or discrimination among the teachers or among the students. We all got along extremely well. Those were the best times.
Right.
The absolute best. We had a dignity. Character was very important for us. So we always maintained a demeanor that was appropriate. Those were some of the things that our parents instilled in us, that there's a way that you behave when you're in public, no screeching or yelling, no cursing or swearing. There's a way that you have a certain deportment. And that was because most of the black people in Creighton Avenue were held in high esteem, like even though the women were housekeepers and some of the men were gardeners, they were held in high esteem by the people that they worked with.
Yeah.
They were, we were responsible people. We were, people who would get the job done. So we weren't going to do anything to mar that image. We learned how to do the right thing and the good thing. That was the thread through. That was like the mantra throughout the community. We learned, we always dressed well and spoke well, and we're not looked upon as troublemakers. It was really a really nice time. It was all about connection.
Freddie's memories of the avenue are so clear. His cousin Adrian also has very fond memories of what it was like growing up here.
Our community was very welcoming. Anybody came up here, especially when we were growing up, because we went to school with all of the kids, the middle-class kids around. We always had those kids up in our homes, and there was never any boundary so far as the kids were concerned. The older folks never came home and talked about things. They never passed on any kind of animosity or anything like that. So we were very fortunate that way because we could make our own decisions about how people treated us. We just didn't automatically go into a situation thinking, well, this isn't going to work out because my parents told me it's not going to work out. We just had our own experiences and made our own opinions about things. And if you can picture in your mind's eye that all the rest of this, where you're seeing all of these homes, it was all woods.
Right.
It was just all woods. There's no sidewalk, of course. And going down that road, again, it was just another small road. And some people had summer homes down in the back there.
Right.
And there was a small corner store just down at the bottom there. But all of it was woods. It was just woods.
I grew up in Creighton Avenue from 0 to 9.
Okay. And like, what were the what's some of the things that you remember when, like, around that time for you?
I remember every summer when strawberries were out, all of the ladies from Victoria Road Baptist Church, the only Black Baptist church in Dartmouth, they'd have what they called a strawberry social. The church was the center of a lot of people's homes. They gathered there for many moments of inspiration. And that strawberry social would be held on Miss Rebecca Ball's front lawn. She had a large lawn right on the main drag of Creighton Avenue. And the elderly ladies would set up tables. There'd be fudge and sweets and chicken salad and I guess Kool-Aid and lemonade. And they had a Sunday afternoon, a strawberry shortcake and strawberry jam. So it was a big social. Everybody went and they raised money for whatever endeavors the church would be part of. And then we always had Christmas time. They don't so much do it now, but families would always visit. So you'd go from house to house, and of course you'd have pound cake or a plum pudding, and you'd always have a glass of syrup, and very, very, very social. But people really don't do that kind of thing now.
No, it's a lost art.
Yeah.
It's a lost social gathering thing.
Yeah, we think that communication, we think that the age of computer is about relationships, but it's really not. It has really divided. and detached and disconnected us from what really meaningful relationships are. But most of the people in the Avenue I was related to, or I wasn't related to them. Somehow I would always end up calling them like Aunt Ruth and Uncle Hubert.
That's such a thread within Black communities.
Yes. So that was just very memorable, very, very memorable times.
You all were related to them. Like, what were some of the family names up the avenue?
Creighton Avenue, where the pavement ended. The first family on the right-hand side, that was Marjorie, or actually it was Freeman and Marjorie Tynes, and his father, Johnny. And then down the road was in the back was my Uncle Clarence and Aunt Myrtle and their quiver of children. And then there was Uncle Alan and Aunt Felicia. I believe they had 9 children.
Wow.
And then at the end there was my Uncle Bobby, Gordon Lucas, and his wife Phyllis, and their daughter Terry. And then next to them was Dollard and Norma James and their son, Garnet, who was in the military but ended up with multiple sclerosis in the late 50s, early 60s. And there have been several cases of multiple sclerosis and brain tumors. And people have asked the question, was it because of the city dump being in that property? You could stand anywhere on Creighton Avenue, you could see the smokestacks, and you could see bulldozers they use. It was almost in my uncle's backyard. It was right at the top, and then my Uncle Bobby lived here, and Uncle Alan lived here. So all that refuge from the dump, it wasn't in their yard, but I mean, it was right there, and they burned all of that stuff off. So that was right in the middle of our community.
The people in Creighton Park were complaining about the smell and the dirt and stuff like that, but they didn't, like, they just put it up. It's called environmental racism.
Most certainly.
They put it up here because it was our community, but when these people started expanding down into our community, then they started complaining, and they removed this stuff, right?
And then that's when things started changing.
And that's when things started changing, yeah. Our parents were down at City Hall regularly. They'd come home after a hard day's work, and they'd go when City Council was having their meetings and try to lobby for the services up here. Even they were paying their taxes, but they weren't getting the services. And then City Hall always had excuses, and they didn't actually get the amenities. Like I said, the road wasn't paved until '88. They didn't get water until '63. They didn't get a sewage line until '83, something like that. Like, it was just in the more recent past and these people had been living up here all this time, and all the people around them had the services, but they didn't. So that was a bit of an issue, but you just knew that there was a kind of a social and geographic boundary when you came to the Avenue. When we were growing up, we could see the difference because all of the kids who were around us, they all had that stuff, and there was always a question, well, why don't we have it?
Black communities of Nova Scotia have always been the last on the list, even as taxpayers and landowners. They don't want us to uphold space, so the city, unfortunately, has always made it difficult for us, and that's facts. It isn't until white people started moving in where things began to change.
There was this invisible boundary. Nobody ever really said anything to you. You just knew that you had your place. Those people had running water and sewage, that sort of thing. And believe it or not, I did recognize those things, and they made a big difference to me. Especially when you see them in somebody else's house and you see how easy it was for them. I think these amenities were kept from the people in the Avenue. I remember when I was very small, Dad and a few of the other people from the avenue going down to town hall and fighting for those things. And it was a long time, but they never gave up. They did this not on one occasion, but a few occasions, and they kept trying to press their case. I can remember that, and the fact that our road wasn't paved. And if we had snow removal and that sort of thing, it was always after the fact. And that was Alana Lucas Taylor. Let me see if I can find some others. But I found it very much like the country because there were wells and there wasn't any indoor plumbing. I had never had to deal with this before in my life.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I did a podcast for CBC. It's about sort of COVID and being black. And the crux of the story was that I came out as a gay person when I was 55. I'm not a political person in any way in terms of race, gender. I'm not into that at all. I like to stand on my own merit, just as a person. You know, I may be seen as a person of color, but you know, I stand on merit, that I am, you know, respectful and honorable. I have dignity, I have character, and I maintain those things in my day-to-day life. So hopefully they will outweigh anything which has to do with my color.
I know growing up in Uniacke Square as a big black man, right? They always would assume that I played sports and stuff, and I'm like, guys, I am into music.
Yeah, yeah, those are caricatures. I played no sports. I didn't do anything like that.
Me neither.
I was into music and acting and drama, and so the caricature that I fit was, you know, I was ultra feminine, so that stuck. That, you know, when I spoke or when I sang or talked, people would say, people understood me to be gay. So that type of caricature doesn't, you know, doesn't always work. My mandate as I remember growing up as a child was to be in the, was to stay in our yard, and you know, I was to go, my mother always took me to school, always walked me to school, and I was to come directly home from school. I came home from school with my older sister. She made sure I got home.
Wow.
My cousin, Adrian
Lucas.
Yeah, they would have a big picnic down at Birch Cove. But for some reason, I wasn't allowed to go. My social network growing up at the Avenue was pretty limited. My mother was very, very, very overprotective of me.
My mother was the opposite.
Yeah.
Because she worked, she was a single mom, worked 3 jobs, a lot, especially when we lived in Spryfield.
Yeah.
So she gave me, my sister, like independence and like learning those skills like very early. I remember at 4 years old actually taking buses from Spryfield to Halifax Shopping Center to go to the arcade.
No, I wouldn't be on any kind of a bus.
So we're at Birch Cove, and it was a place that when we were growing up in the 50s and 60s, a long time ago, we spent our summers and our winters down here. We basically congregated down here any time of the day or early evening and just played. We just played. And we would come down from our community up the street and just walk down here. It was about a 10-minute walk down to this idyllic spot where we could just enjoy ourselves and play. Beautiful spot we had. When the church was up in the avenue, we did the baptisms down here.
Really? They used to do the baptisms down here?
Yeah, just in this open water. Well, in a lot of Black communities, that's what they did, right? They just, they always, for some reason, they put our communities around where there was water, which was a really good thing, and it made it actually really sought-after property when people got over the fact that they were Black communities.
Yeah.
And so we always had water, and the churches would go outside and do their baptisms in the lakes, in the water that was available to them, right? So you can see the people all standing on the shore there, and you can see the pastors out there in the water with one of the candidates getting ready to baptize them.
A lot of people don't even know that this place existed.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. Most people don't. This is actually in September of this year. It was 25 years since I did my thesis.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to get some things done this year just to recognize that. But I mean, there have been a lot of news reports or news articles written about the avenue. There was one written when they put a plaque on the grave site of the bodies that were exhumed from the avenue. And there was another one where somebody found out about the avenue and they interviewed me. So there have been a number of interviews. There have been a lot of academic papers that have used that research, and that's internationally. So it's kind of out there with a certain group of people, but just regular everyday people. Even the people who live up here on Creighton Avenue didn't even know that there was a Black community up there. So so when I first wrote that, like, people were finding out about it, and hundreds of people were reading it, and they were calling me and saying, "Oh, I didn't know there was a Black community up there," you know. So it was really good to get that history out there. That was the important thing for me, was to historicize the fact that there was a Black community at the top of Creighton Avenue, right within the city, which was very different from all of the other Black communities which were built as far away from the cities as they could get them. So we had a different experience because of that. So it was pretty idyllic, you know. You could come out and you could go hang out in the woods and build forts and pick flowers and berries, and, you know, it was just really kind of idyllic kind of place to grow up. And because you were surrounded by so many people in your community, then you kind of formed your identity based on how they saw the world, and you had that support system, that internal support system. So when you went out into the world and you know, were kind of a little bit overwhelmed by it, you could come back to your community and, you know, just feel at peace. So it was a lovely place to grow up, really.
In 2020, the city acknowledged the avenue by putting a sign at Birch Cove by Lake Banook. I like to see that in a community. I'd even like to see it read that Black people from the avenue helped build Dartmouth as farmers, laborers, tradespeople, entrepreneurs, and professionals. Till next time.